Happy to have Peter Sage today. For those of you who listen to the podcast, he was a podcast guest on episode 8, and today we're going to have him on to talk about, how can you reach the finish line in your lives? Because I think a lot of people they have those challenges, whether it's on the personal side or whether it's the professional side. The underlying cause of the uncertainty is fear, and it's usually fear of failure. And most people, if they fail enough times, they give up because they feel like they won't be successful future. What would you say to a person like that, Peter? How can a person really, kind of build that tenacity to be able to persevere through uncertainty? What would you say, what would be your best advice that you can give to that person to hopefully they can mitigate, mitigate any type of, things that may lead them to quit? What would you say to that, Peter?
Well, let's chunk back a little bit and deal with this uncertainty thing. Yeah, as you say, it's always fear-based. That's it. I'm scared of, fill in the blank. But the blank always has a seed. It has a foundational point. There's many levels of awareness that get covered up for that, but the foundational point is almost always, I'm scared that I won't be good enough. I'm scared of what people will think. I'm scared that I won't be loved. I'm scared that I won't fulfill my potential. All of that leads back, all roads lead to Rome. I'm scared of the fear that I'm not enough. And so I'd rather cling on to the illusion of what I currently have so I can shine the torch on that rather than embrace the level of uncertainty. So the best way to get over it is to go where your fear is. It's counterintuitive. One thing I'll state is that every emotion unresisted usually ends up in joy. But most people perpetuate the fear with the resistance. It is the resistance to the emotion that allows it to have the grip over you. If you're scared of flying and you get on an airplane, you're going to be experiencing the exact same emotional messages in the brain as if the plane was falling out of the sky. Your brain doesn't tell you that, but you sat there gripping hold of the seat for 9 hours or whatever long the flight is. Worried about what's going to happen. And worrying about what hasn't happened yet is like paying interest on a debt you haven't signed for yet. Right? It's pointless. So right. If you can understand that, well, okay, maybe it's a valid fear, but why don't I just choose to do that when the plane is actually falling out of the sky? Then it'll be validated. And until then, why would I torture myself with stuff that hasn't happened yet based on a fabrication of anticipation? Most people are scared of going bankrupt. Well, guess what? You're experiencing the exact same emotion as if you just got your notice. But your brain doesn't tell you that.
And I think that's very important because I feel like people put fears in certain categories. If I get divorced, if I lose my job, or if this happens, or if that happens. But essentially, fear is just one frequency. We got radio frequency, stuff like that. But it's just one frequency. As you stated, Peter, whether a person gets an eviction, though, a person gets evicted, it still comes from the same feeling, and it's still as intense. There was an analogy that you used. You kind of put a spin on the word "but," and I love the way you put that. And perhaps if you could share with our audience about that, because I feel like what happens is, a person may take the first step. Okay, they may take the first step in a venture and live uncertainty. They don't know perhaps where the venture capitals come from, or the extra money, or a sustainable income, or whatever else. They don't actually know where, but they do believe, they do have faith, and that's what initially gets them started. But I think this is a good segue until you talk about the but, and perhaps you could share more about that and tie that in.
Everybody wants to talk about the butt. I got some funny looks when I first used this analogy because I say, one of the defining characteristics of successful people is the shape of their butt. And and before everybody runs off to Fitness First and jumps on the Stairmaster, which isn't a bad thing either, by the way. What I mean by that is that the word but is a very interesting word because we use it in two different categories. We can use it as an excuse or we can use it as propulsion. It is a pivot point word. I would have a successful business, but I don't have the money. I would have a relationship, but I keep meeting the wrong people. Which, incidentally, one thing I found is that, if you keep meeting the wrong people in the relationship, maybe it isn't them. So that is one way of being able to use your butt. But the best way to use your butt is different. It's like, well, I don't have the money to start a business, but I will find a way. I don't have somebody in my life right now, but I know if I show up as the best me I can be, I will attract the person who most wants to be with me. It's a different, it's a pivot point word. So yeah, check your butt, because if you come to a place whereby you have embraced the level of uncertainty, you've stepped on the board, you're playing the game. If you don't get that part right, you'll start shrinking back, stepping up to the plate.